For months now, the media and frankly most Democrats have been acting as though President Trump is directly responsible for every case of COVID-19 in the U.S. Now, back in March, the angle, like many, were dismayed that the CDC initially mishandled the testing. Thankfully, today, we lead the world in testing.
We do more testing than anybody in the world. If you look at India, they're at about 11 million, and we're at 61 million. What we've done is incredible with the testing, and we will continue. But we want to really be able to test very specifically the people that are in most danger, most in need.
Excellent answer. And yet the constant belittling of the administration's efforts, it's deeply unfair, and it's almost entirely political. So tonight, I think this is really important, this angle tonight, because we're going to set this record straight. We start with the biggest lies peddled by the left. First, that the president doesn't take the pandemic seriously.
Don't forget, let's not forget that he downplayed this virus for months.
What has happened here is that Donald Trump has downplayed this virus since the beginning.
This man is determined to keep down his golf handicap, not the number of cases that are making us sick.
The president said that the virus is a hoax.
Now, while the Democrats were hyperventilating over the bogus impeachment hearings and the media was bemoaning anti-China bias in the reaction initially to the virus, the Trump administration created a COVID task force on January 29th. 2 days later, the president declared a public health emergency, and he ordered any U.S. citizens returning from China to quarantine for 14 days. On February 2nd, Trump's travel ban from China went into effect. Then the president went on to ban travel from Europe in March. A lot of people were unhappy with that. But both of those actions have been applauded by the left's biggest hero.
Were you involved in working with President Trump on deciding to ban flights from China?
Yes, sir, I was.
Do you think that decision saved lives, Dr. Fauci?
Yes, I do.
When ultimately we saw spread in Europe, and then the president recommended that we extend that to Europe, do you think that decision saved lives?
Yes, I do.
Bingo. Now, second lie, that the White House didn't do enough to alleviate the medical supply shortage.
The country is facing yet another dangerous shortage of PPE and medical equipment supplies.
Right now, this country cannot beat coronavirus without more PPE. We had a shortage.
We need to reset. Surging cases, long lines for tests, not enough PPE. And Trump also doing exactly what he did in March and April, which is to minimize.
Well, the president invoked the Defense Production Act back in March. Given the massive control it allows him to exert over private business and the economy, the president wisely used the act only when businesses didn't voluntarily devote assembly lines to producing PPEs, ventilators, other much-needed supplies. So when Andrew Cuomo projected, remember they'd need as many as, what was it, 30,000 or 40,000 vents? We told you that figure was absurd, but the White House kicked into high gear anyway. There was a mass mobilization of resources, including setting up field hospitals in New York and using Navy ships that ended up, of course, being hardly utilized. But it was all done to ensure that the tri-state area's hospital system didn't ultimately collapse. And guess what? It didn't. And when we weren't 3 months out from a presidential election, Andrew Cuomo regularly acknowledged the billions in help.
The president brought in the Army Corps of Engineers. They built 2,500 beds at Javits. These were just extraordinary efforts and acts of mobilization. And the federal government stepped up and was a great partner. And I'm the first one to say it. We needed help, and they were there.
Yesterday, he was trashing the Trump administration. Nice going, Andy. Third, this whopper. Speaking of New York, that New York is somehow the gold standard for the rest of America.
They've been flatlined for the last 4 weeks. That's an example of what can be done.
Governor Cuomo in particular did it really the right way from March on. And
not a, do this if you want kind of language, but firm language, life-saving mandates by our leaders. He clearly was listening to his health advisors.
Well, unlike the liberal media, numbers don't lie. Now, we hear a lot about Florida, Arizona, and Texas not following in Cuomo's footsteps. But look at this chart. The death rate per 100,000 in New York is over 3 times the death rate in Arizona, nearly 5 times the death rate in Florida, and over 6 times the death rate in Texas. No wonder New York's top health official resigned today. Now, when the media harps on our COVID death numbers, national numbers, they fail to mention the states with the highest numbers.
New York had a very tough time, as you know, New York, New Jersey, that area. But when you take that out, our numbers are among the lowest.
Now, the president loves New York, but the notion that these states should be taking advice from Governor Cuomo, or anyone, frankly, who presided over the disaster in the Empire State, is just absurd. Fourth lie. The left falsely blames Trump for the economy tanking last quarter.
The handling of the coronavirus pandemic is not good for the president. That is bad news for the economy.
It's just decimated our economy.
With our economy's worst drop ever. Ever. Okay? 32.9%.
The last claim you heard about U.S. GDP shrinking 32.9% in the second quarter of this year is insanely misleading. Now, while it's technically true, the figure represents an annualized number. In other words, it was the amount of the decline that would take place over a year if trends from the second quarter continued. Now, that would only happen if we followed Biden's recommendation to shut down the economy and keep kids out of school, thus parents out of work. On a non-annualized basis, the decline from Q1 to Q2 2020 was only 9.5%. Now, that's still a staggering loss, don't get me wrong, but one that we can actually quickly recover from if Trump is able to continue with his pro-freedom agenda. Now, of course, once you dig into the numbers, it's easy to see which states are holding back a full-fledged recovery. The blue ones. Nevada and Hawaii have an excuse because of the problems resulting from tourism. But why are all these other states on this list still doing so poorly? Because they failed to take President Trump's advice. And rather than trusting their people, they imposed drastic lockdown measures that had catastrophic economic consequences while doing very little to stop the virus. It's also worth remembering where this virus came from: China. Why aren't Democrats clamoring to hold them accountable for unleashing this plague on the world after, of course, they initially tried to cover it up? For that matter, why are Democrats pushing for more funding to the WHO, which aided and abetted China's lies? Fifth lie. Despite the dismal performance of lockdown-loving blue states, Democrats still complain that we didn't follow Europe's lead in handling COVID.
We did not wait to crush the curve. In Europe, they did the exact opposite.
Comparing to Europe, we have to get our virus under control like they did before you can start reopening schools.
This chart compares the number of new daily coronavirus cases in the United States with those in Europe. It shows just how much worse the outbreak has been in the United States.
And looking at the numbers, you have to remember that the U.S. is an enormous country with about 330 million people. But when you add the populations of Germany, Britain, France, Italy, Spain, and Belgium, they together have almost 336 million people. That's roughly equal to our population. So first off, on testing, we've performed better than those 6 European Western countries. They've done 42.8 million tests for COVID-19. We've done 59.9 million. Since we've performed so many more tests, we can't really do an apples-to-apples comparison on confirmed COVID case numbers. But of course, we can look at deaths. We have suffered. We've suffered 158,000 deaths. It's a horrific tragedy. But the 6 European countries combined have suffered roughly 159,000 deaths, an equal and horrific tragedy. Likewise, our death rates are lower than many of our European counterparts. Belgium, the UK, Spain, Italy have seen way worse death rates than we have. France is only doing slightly better than we are in terms of deaths as well. Now, what we also have to recognize is that the U.S., of course, as I said, a massive country. If you break it down by state, it's clear that Democrat states are the reason that the death rates are so high. Just happens to have worked out that way, right? We can also say that our economy has done significantly better than Europe's. Remember that the U.S. economy fell by 9.5% on a quarterly basis. The Eurozone, that is, the economies of all the nations that use the euro, fell by 12.1%. Even Germany suffered a decline of 10.1%. But aren't the Europeans going to do better than us going forward? Well, that's not what investors think. Let's look at how the key stock indices have done since the beginning of the year. In other words, investors are not betting that Western European companies are more valuable than their American counterparts. If anything, their bets are all the other way. So, we performed 17 million more tests than our counterparts in Western Europe. We have roughly the same number of deaths. Our economy, though, is much stronger, and investors have more confidence in our outlook going forward. But while these figures clearly show that the U.S. is doing very well by comparison to our allies in Europe, they don't give President Trump enough credit, because the U.S. figures are distorted by the poor performance of many of the blue state governors. Here are the facts. The U.S. as a whole has suffered 48 deaths per 100,000 from COVID-19. But 7 states have suffered deaths at a rate higher than even Spain did. Here you see the catastrophic results of poor local governance, especially in and around New York City. In fact, New York's death rate was 2.5 times worse than Spain's. In the meantime, we should all be grateful that during this unprecedented crisis, President Trump has insulated most of the country from the disastrous top-down policies and lockdowns and looting, frankly, that Democrats seem to want to look the other way on. Thank goodness. And that's the angle. In part 2, tomorrow night, we're going to journey through the crisis as it could have unfolded under the leadership of Joe Biden.